Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Andrew Martin from Andrew Martin Energy, and I am here with your weekly Oracle card reading. This week we are looking at July 26th through August 1st. Can y'all believe it? Like, I just said the word August. Like, next week it's gonna be August. I mean, what is time, really? Without a calendar, without these weekly Oracle card readings, and without like my clients and, the days that they booked, I don't even know if I would have any sense or any reference of like time in a linear perspective anyway. Hi everybody, how are you? I'm super excited to be connecting with you today. We've got a lot going on this week. We just had the Aquarius, the full moon in Aquarius. We have another full moon in Aquarius next month, which I don't know what the percentages are, but 2 full moons consecutively in the same sign almost never happens. We also have the Mayan day out of time, which is happening on the 25th or 26th. We're entering into the Lion's Gate energies and that whole thing. Man, if it weren't already enough going on the surface of this planet, we have just added some really potent energetic layers for us this week, and I cannot wait to see what the cards have to say about that. So this is how we do it. I draw 3 cards, 1 card for Monday, Tuesday, a 2nd card for Wednesday, Thursday, and a 3rd card for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that will be your forecast for the week. Think of it like a weather forecast, but we're not talking about the weather, we're talking about the energy. And then at the end of the reading, I will draw a 4th card. And the 4th card will be your answer. And what that means is that at the end of the reading, you'll have a second to pause the video, take a second to connect, and then you can ask a question. And then whatever card I draw will be the answer to your question. If you want something more specific and particular to your experience, I do offer one-on-one readings. You can go to andrewmartin.energy. We're going to get into the reading now. I'm going to shuffle these cards. I'm going to wake them up. I'm going to get them going, and we're going to begin. But while I'm doing that, why don't you go ahead and just hit the subscribe button, then turn on the notifications button, and then if you like this video, you could share it. Okay, on with the reading. I'm going to give these cards a shuffle, and I'll see you in a couple seconds. Okay, everybody, here we go. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we'll do the card for your question at the end of the reading. I'm just going to start. We saw this card last week. The card for Monday, Tuesday is the Authority card. Here comes this dude from last week, moving back through our awareness. And what is the message that he has for us today? Don't forget who you are. Now, there's a couple of ways that we could look at that message. Obviously, we can look at it from the perspective of the human. We can look at it from the perspective of the personality. But that's just this much of who you are. The person that you see when you look in the mirror is literally the tip of the iceberg. I've talked about this before, and this analogy is a very apt one. When you see an iceberg floating in the middle of a body of water, the part that you see above the surface of the water is actually the smallest part of it. The bulk of the iceberg's weight, the bulk of the iceberg's density is actually under the water where it's not necessarily visible to the naked eye. And that is exactly what this card is stepping forward. Okay, here we go. The Authority in this sense represents the galactic self, the cosmic self. We are moving into energies specifically this week. It's starting to really ramp up. And I talked about this in my July energy update video, which I will link right here. I'll put a little card right here for you so you can watch it later. After you watch this one, you can watch that one. And I talked a lot about how the intensity of our experience is going to be ramping up the rest of this year, and how we are deeply in process with the ascension experience, and that this chapter we are going through is going to be a big uptick. And it feels to me like we are going to continue to build energetic intensity through the end of the year. And so the Authority in this sense is you at that highest level. I touched on this in last week's reading, how you were going to begin to feel layers of self moving in, and it was going to be like, oh my gosh, here they are. Like, oh wow, that's really powerful, that's really profound, or that's really palpable. Like, I can actually feel the presence of myself. I can actually feel the presence of my helpers, my guides, my team. And that is something that I have been seeing with every single client that I saw this past week, has been a huge shift, like a 180 in perspective, a 180 in experience, moving from the experience of living in the matrix to the awakening of self at the level where you realize the truth of who and what you are. You are infinite. You are eternal. You are indelible. You are the divine light that moves through all things. This is the truth of who and what you are, my friends. And the message here is challenging because as these layers of yourself are coming home and deeply, deeply merging with you in the physical sense. I mean, it's like you just got a new roommate who's like a cosmic being. I mean, that's essentially what's happening as we merge with these aspects of self. Your experience with yourself is going to be unique to you. So for Monday and Tuesday, be open to receive yourself. Be open to allow yourself to move in. The self with the capital S, right? I'm talking the eternal, infinite, creator self. And that's what this authority card is coming in to say, is that you are here. You are here. You are here. I don't know how many more times I'm supposed to say it, but this feels major. This feels really big. This feels like a permanent shift. This feels like a threshold that you are getting ready to cross. This feels like something that will change the game for you forever. And speaking from experience, I'm thinking last year when I was going through at the end of last year around October, I was going through some really, really massive stuff, some really intense integration and embodiment was happening. And these layers of self that were coming home were so massive and so major and so mind-blowing with the knowledge and the information and the energy that they carried. And yet at the same time, it was totally mundane and just business as usual. There was the human self and the human perspective, which was like, what the hell was that? And literally that's what I was saying. I was like, what the hell was that? And yet at the same time, to these higher levels of self, to these more expanded layers of self, it was just like, oh yeah, no, this is just a part of you coming home. Oh yeah, that's that ancient part of you that's just been waiting to arise. Oh yeah, that's Osiris. Yeah, there's an aspect of you that is Osiris, and Osiris is just coming home. It was like, oh, I just went to the store and I got a sandwich. And to me, from my human perspective, I was like, what? Are you kidding? Like, you just rattle these things off like they're every day. But in those higher realms, it is every day. The truth of who and what you are is that you are separate from nothing. You are everything. You are literally the universe in a body. So while the things that are going to be coming in for you Monday and Tuesday will be mind-blowing in many ways and will be sort of like things come to a screeching halt as you're trying to really just take in everything that's occurring, just allow. Just allow. Remember, hands open, unclench, and receive. All you have to do is be present and allow. That's your job on Monday and Tuesday. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, and then we're looking at Wednesday, Thursday. Wednesday, Thursday is heartache and loss. And I often feel a sense of people pulling back when I draw this card. There's this sense of like we just touched something hot. But heartache and loss doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. And what I'm getting here is this is a sense of loss that is an internal one. And the heartache and the loss is really saying goodbye to these old layers of self that are ready to go. And especially in the face of this self, this authority, this true you, anything that just isn't true, anything that isn't holding water, anything that isn't authentic or relevant, or anything that isn't congruent with who you are now, that's what's falling away. And to the mind, to the human self and the human identity and the human perspective, it can feel very much like a death. Because essentially it is. It's this layer of self, this personality, this coping mechanism, sort of defense mechanism, or this way that we have learned to sort of make it through the intensity of what it is to be a human on the planet at this time. And these layers of self oftentimes are simply a coping mechanism just to get us through a passage. And they aren't necessarily intended to be eternal. They aren't necessarily intended to be with us for our entire life. Think about something that was very traumatic. If you were, let's just say, 7 years old and this really, really traumatic thing happened, psychologically and energetically, you would respond, and sometimes even physically, you would respond with ways that would keep you safe. You would respond with a defense that would do what it could do to protect you. These defense mechanisms and these protection mechanisms are certainly useful in the moment, but they're not necessarily intended to be a permanent part of self. And what I mean by that is this. If you've ever had a physical injury like a broken foot, and you go through the process of healing, you're going to use a cast, or you're going to use a wheelchair, or you're going to use a walker or a cane. You're going to use some external mechanism to help prop you up until you are back to being healthy, balanced, and thriving. a lot of what we call our personality is really just very, very well crafted coping mechanisms. And they aren't necessarily intended to be permanent parts of our personality. They are there for us to use to get us through a rocky or a rough passage. But just like that cane or that walker or that wheelchair that you're using when your foot is broken, there comes a point where you've got to let it go. Because if you were to continue to use that crutch or that cane, eventually it would actually begin to work against you and would actually prevent your foot from fully healing and would prevent your body from getting fully back to the state where it was capable of walking well on its own. That's what we're dealing with as these layers of self are coming to the surface. And it is these really, really intense energies that are bringing them to the surface. So it's not surprising often when we have a big, big influx, download, infusion of this really, really high frequency energy that comes directly from self or source. That comes in and it stirs up a whole bunch of stuff. So it's not uncommon at all to go from a really, really high peak energetically, and then as you're bringing it back into the body, as you're bringing that energy back into your experience, as you're bringing it back into real world, real time, oftentimes the big valley is followed by a big peak, because now all this other stuff that cannot stand in the face of the true self must go. So for Wednesday and Thursday, it's all about compassion for yourself. Wednesday and Thursday is a perfect time to wrap your arms around yourself, give yourself a big old hug and say, baby, I love you. I love you unconditionally. I love you eternally. And I am here as long as you need to stay. And all you have to do is these parts of self that are ready to go, that need to go, that want to go. You just got to let them know that you love them. You just got to let them know that you're grateful for them. And you just got to let them know that whenever they are ready, they can go. Because a lot of these parts of ourselves, a lot of these helpers that arrive in the form of a personality or the form of assistance or support, they aren't necessarily meant to be with us for the entirety of our journey. They're only there for a season, for a chapter, for a time. So midweek, you may want to consider doing something like a journaling exercise where you're releasing these parts of self. You may even want to write like in memoriam for these old parts of self. You know, think about how you used to perceive yourself. Think about how you used to think of yourself. Think about who you used to be, and see that not all of those layers of self are really relevant, are really applicable, nor are they even necessary, because you are not the same person that you were even 6 months ago. And so the way that you know yourself and the way that you navigate the world must also change. And so the heartache and loss is actually a blessing, because it is these layers of self that were only temporary that are willingly now stepping forward to say, I'm ready to go, but you gotta let me leave. Not easy, but definitely necessary. So now we're looking at the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And this emotional loss card, this to me feels like this is just following this card. But what I see here, and the image that I want to really focus on, or the part of the image that I really want to focus on here, is the center of the chest. And you can see this person just holding themselves, connecting through the heart. And you can see that it is the heart that is the spiraling out of everything. And look at that, connected to the light. So it's, one of those things where it's like the spiral goes into the heart, connects to that light, then goes back out of the body and goes back to the source light. So what Friday, Saturday, Sunday is talking about, and the emotional loss, it's simply allowing those old selves to die. It is allowing those old selves to collapse, and it is doing it from the heart. It is doing it with gratitude. It is doing it with appreciation. It is doing it with deep, deep compassion for this process, because it is not always easy. And this emotional loss is bringing you to a place where you have an opportunity to really fully open yourself up, just like rip it open and let it go. And if you really want to accelerate the process, you say to self, help me to release all that no longer serves me. Help me to receive everything that is here to support me. I allow, I allow, I allow. And then you just got to be present and you just got to allow it. But the key here is to understand that everything now is moving in and out of the heart. This is your cosmic connection. You can see this, right? His heart is connected through this geometry, this Fibonacci spiral, this nautilus shell. You can see that he is connected to all of that. So what I think the deeper meaning here is talking about is this emotional loss is stripping back the layers. It is ripping back everything that stands in the way. It's tearing down the veils, tearing down the walls, pulling back the curtain. And we are getting back to the fundamentals, the energy, the geometry, the light, and the information. And that's really what everything is. Everything is energy and information. Everything is light. Everything is geometry. And that's really the basis for all of it. Fundamentally, if we were to drill down deep enough, we would see the same platonic solids and the same geometric figures in all of creation. So at the microscopic cellular level, there is no difference between any of us. There is no difference between anything. So understand that while midweek you may be feeling the intensity of this emotional loss, it is clearing the decks for you. It is bringing you back to the truth, to the center, to the self, to the source of who and what you are. And it is removing anything that stands in the way. It is removing everything that is built on illusion. And just like last week's message was, just allow yourself to be carried. And that's what I find is a lot of times during these, specifically during these really intense energetic passages, we are often just being carried and ushered through them by our team. And we don't necessarily have to have our hands in the mix. And that's actually what I find to be fascinating. I just saw this with all three cards. All of them have their hands to themselves. We have Mr. Authority, the true self. I'm keeping my hands to myself. I know who I am. I have nothing to prove. I have nothing to reach for. I have nothing to grasp. It's an internal thing. Same thing with the heartache and loss. She's internally, she's even looking down at herself. She's really coming into her own body. She's in her inner landscape. She's doing the work that is required within herself to get herself through this passage. Do you feel me? As we evolve on our spiritual journey, we begin to see that we are the solution, we are the problem, we are the nurse, we are the doctor, we are the patient. We are the one that is being born. We are the one that is doing the birthing. We are also the midwife. Like, you are all of it. You are all of it. So this week, when you're being carried, that's never a time to reach outside and try to grasp at stuff. When you are being accelerated, that's not usually the time to say, oh, stop, wait, I gotta go pee. You know what I mean? Like, go inside and stay there this week. And I don't mean like in your house, although you could do that too, but what I mean is in here. Go inside and stay there. If there's only one thing you pay attention to this week, if there's only one thing that you are focused on this week, it should be your heart. Because that's where we are right now, kids. This is not a thinking thing. This is a feeling thing. This is not a doing thing. This is a being thing. And being ends and begins in the heart. That is the portal to the divine. That is where heaven meets earth. So this week, very similar to last week, this is about just allowing yourself to be carried. This is about allowing yourself to see this process, to be actively present, but you don't have to get your hands in it unless you are specifically directed to do so. So this week, authority, keep it close to yourself. Keep it all here. Put your arms around all that you are and welcome yourself home. Embrace all that you are, even the sticky, icky parts that are hard to look at. Hands open, heart open, and just receive this week. Because this week is a major uptick in the energies. And man, it feels like the slingshot being pulled back. And I feel like after this week is over, it's just going to be blink and it's 2022. So that's what's going on this week. How's that sound? All right, so now we are going to draw the card for your question. Again, this is how I do it. You can take a second. If you want to pause the video, you can. If you want to close your eyes and say a prayer, you can. Or you can simply just ask a question, and the question is anything. Something you've been dying to know, something that you want clarity on, something that you're just curious about. Whatever it is, just take your time, and when you're ready, watch this part of the video. Okay, there we go. The answer to your question is dun dun dun. Deception and envy. What's the answer? No. no, don't trust this person. This person is not being honest. This person wants something from you in a way that is not good for you. And what I mean by that is oftentimes in our spiritual journey, we go through big shifts and we go through big changes. And not everyone in our life, our family, our friends, the loved ones, the people that we're close to, not everyone in our life is going through these changes in the same way, at the same time, and at the same level. So oftentimes what occurs as we're going through these big shifts in our life is that the people that are close to us begin to drift away. It's really as our paths are parallel for as long as they're parallel, and then eventually I begin to converge and you either keep going straight or you begin to converge, or vice versa. I keep going straight and you converge, whatever. Suffice it to say that oftentimes what happens on our spiritual journey is people are desperate to hang on to us, or at least hang on to the version of us that they know. We are going through major changes. Internally, we are shifting and morphing and evolving and changing. And eventually those changes begin to emerge on the surface and they begin to affect our experience in the real world, or the external world, I should say. And oftentimes people get uncomfortable. Well, Andrew always used to be the person that would say yes to this, and now he's not saying yes to that, and I don't like that. Because in my world, the version of Andrew that I know is the one that always says yes. Well, maybe Andrew doesn't want to say yes anymore. Maybe Andrew has decided that your relationship isn't healthy for him. Maybe Andrew has decided that he doesn't like doing that anymore, and he hasn't liked doing it for about a year. He just never had the opportunity or the courage to say so. And now he's saying, girl, I don't want to do that anymore. And you don't like that. So what you're doing is you're deciding you're going to do whatever you can to keep me locked in the old version of Andrew that you are familiar and comfortable with. Mostly because that old version of Andrew is just a yes man and said yes to whatever you wanted, without stopping to think, was it something that he wanted? Yes, I'm speaking from experience. So what this card is saying, and the answer to your question is no. I don't trust this person. I wouldn't trust this person. This person isn't out to harm you, but they are threatened by your growth. They are threatened by your expansion, and it makes them really, really uncomfortable. You know, everybody in our lives has a script, and in that script is the version of you that they know. And when you show up as a different version of that, suddenly I don't like that, because now not only do I have to learn to contend with this new version of Andrew that I never approved, right? I never wanted these script changes. I was happy with how Andrew is. But here's the real tea. The major reason that most people try to sabotage or hinder your progress is because when they see you living your truth, and they see you saying yes to the things that light you up, and they see you facing your fears and making changes in your life, now suddenly they have to look at all the parts of their life where they are not being honest, where they are not honoring their truth, where they are not saying yes or no when they mean it. And so oftentimes it's an attempt just to keep you small because I'm still playing small. And it's no fun to be small when you're by yourself. So unfortunately, I just don't think you can trust this person right now. Maybe down the road they will have an awakening. Maybe down the road they'll have an understanding of what's going on. But right now, I wouldn't trust them. I wouldn't collaborate with them. And I would say no. There you go, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I love doing these readings for you. Go to my website, andrewmartin.energy, if you're interested in booking your own private session. You can also make a donation there if you feel that this work is of value and you would like to show your appreciation. I'm always open to accepting donations. That's it. I love you. Have a fabulous week. I'll talk to you soon.